Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. I want to talk to you today about God going before you. When we face challenges and we have things that come up against us, it's easy at that point to start dreading, thinking, this is going to be so hard. How am I going to make it through? How am I going to deal with this child who's off course? How can I accomplish this dream? There's too many obstacles. I don't have the resources. I don't have the connections. Yes, that all may be true. There are seasons of testing, undeniably, in our lives where we can do very little other than to endure, keep on doing the right thing when it's hard, be good to people when they're not being good to us. But our message today is that there are also, for those who keep God first place, times when Krishna or God will step in and make something easier than you thought. In the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 22nd verse, Ananyas chintayanto mam yejano yoga sema bahamiham. Those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. It means to say the Lord goes before us and he makes our crooked ways straight. That means something which should have overwhelmed us ends up being no problem at all. Should have been a mountain, Krishna made it a molehill. What looks complicated, you don't see a solution, suddenly things fall into place. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. No, you don't have the connections. No, you don't know the right people, but out of nowhere, someone steps in, shows you favor. You thought it was going to be a long, drawn out, agonizing process, but it turned out easier than you thought. Vi and I came to Utah Valley from Los Angeles in 1981. We've been doing service at the temple there in Culver City. It was an important center, obviously, in a major city. We've been doing management level service there for over 10 years. And we were good and effective at what we did. But in our hearts, we had a desire to do something more challenging, less predictable, less routine. We put down a small down payment on a radio station and a piece of property, and of all places, Spanish Fork, Utah. So right away, from our own missionary society, there was opposition, criticism, obstacles, financial setbacks. For a while, I thought we'd made a mistake. I thought we'd got it wrong. Maybe the Lord hadn't called us Utah after all. Maybe the voice I'd been listening to wasn't the voice of the Lord, but my own false ego. Similarly, you may be facing situations that are tempting you to feel dreadful. You've already decided this is going to be hard. I've bitten off more than I can chew. You're gearing yourself up for a long, hard, uphill battle, struggle against the odds with uncertain results. Well, Krishna has a word of consolation for you here from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Kanchana shmite yasmin dushkuram shukuram bhavet vishmite viparitam syat Sri Chaitanya namami sam. Things that are very difficult to do, dushkuram, become very easy, shukaram, when you remember the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If one doesn't remember the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya as Krishna's devotional incarnation, easy things become difficult. So Krishna is saying to you, if you keep him first place, chant his name consistently and on a daily basis, things are going to turn out easier than you think. There's going to be a supernatural grace, a supernatural favor, a supernatural strength. He's working behind the scenes, making rough places smooth, changing people's minds, causing them to be for you. We have to do our part and get in agreement with Krishna. You can't go around dreading it, making plans for it to be hard. You draw in what you think about. So if you're telling yourself, I can't pass that course, the teacher has it in for me, the problem's too big, I'll never build this temple, then you are your own worst enemy. You're defeating yourself with your own thoughts. How about turning around? Yes, it looks difficult, but Krishna, I know that you're still on the throne. You said your yoke is easy, your burden is light. You said you're making my rough places smooth. Krishna, you wouldn't have gotten me this far in order to not finish what you started. At the end of the day, I want to thank you with the faith that it's going to turn out to be easier than it looks. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We came to Utah, and for another 10 years, we kept on broadcasting through the radio station, 1480, kept on organizing festivals where people sat in hay bales in front of a rundown radio shack, kept on doing cookie sales at Walmarts and Kmarts and selling llamas to raise funds, kept on with a good attitude, even though it seemed nothing significant was happening. And as far as the greater world of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness was concerned, Caru and Bhai Babi were off the radar, exiled to the deserts of Utah. Many devotees assumed they'd never hear from us again. We'd be absorbed into the general fabric of the culture, lose our missionary zeal, and end up merging into anonymity. In 1991, we were able to scrape up the down payment for another 8.5 acres of land next door to the original 5 acres. We thought it would be an ideal site for a temple, an elevated hilltop overlooking the surrounding broad farmlands, the Rocky Mountains, a backdrop to the east, the site visible to all the north and southbound traffic on I-15. The only thing is we weren't sure how the local Mormon community would react to the proposal of a Hare Krishna temple in an area that's 90% LDS. We got the answer to that question one Sunday when I was out on the road selling cookies. We had our services at the log house in those days. Bhai was giving the Sunday talk to a group of young people, among whom happened to be, unknown to her, a reporter for the BYU student newspaper. Bhai casually mentioned that we'd acquired some land, and maybe in 10 years or so, when the land was paid off, we might consider building a temple if the community were receptive to the idea. Well, we were about to discover that Krishna had been working behind the scenes for all those years, gone before us, made our crooked places straight, lined up the right connections, opened doors that we could never imagine. Those years of keeping on in spite of opposition, criticism, financial difficulty, those years of doing the right thing when it seemed nothing was happening, were about to pay off. Krishna had seen our faith, getting out of our comfort zone in Los Angeles, striking out into the unknown to break ground and honor him in a special way. He knew the nights we'd lay awake, wondering if we'd made the right move, the times we tuned out the negative voices, the times we kept going when there was every reason to give up. Krishna has the right people lined up for you. Krishna knows how to change people's minds. He knows how to cause them to be for you. You don't have to do everything in your own power, your own strength, your own ability. The Most High God is going before you. He's fighting your battles. He's arranging the good breaks, the healing, the favor, the promotion. We'd worked hard for 10 years to try and make something happen. We stayed strong, fought the good fight of faith. Didn't happen overnight. It was a struggle, but we kept believing, kept declaring the promises, kept doing the right thing. And then in one stroke, Krishna suddenly turned it around. It was difficult. It was uphill for years. And then all of a sudden, it got easy and it went downhill. To our surprise, the next Tuesday, after this talk I had given, a huge full-page article appeared in the BYU student newspaper heralding the construction of a new temple in Mormon-dominated Utah. By Thursday, Friday of that same week, additional big articles appeared in the Salt Lake Tribune and the Deseret News, clearly blessing and welcoming the idea of the temple project, cheering it on. People started to step forward to volunteer money and time. Mormons, who were already giving 10% of their salary to the church, stepped up to give us additional donations. The Mormon Church donated itself $25,000. Contractors agreed to work for reduced rates. An architect donated his time for free. A structural engineer donated his work for free. Dr. Dinesh Patel, the undisputed leader of the Indian community in Salt Lake City, rallied them behind this first Indian temple to be built in the state of Utah. When we did the groundbreaking on Diwali of 1996, it was covered by 5 TV stations. When the temple opened in 2001, 5,000 friends and neighbors showed up to celebrate and support. The state senator, Orrin Hatch, flew out from Washington, D.C. Future Governor Gary Herbert made an inaugural speech. And since it opened up almost exactly 20 years ago, in 2001, approximately 2 million people have visited from all over the United States and all over the world. Can I tell you that you might go through seasons of struggle in the pursuit of your God-given dreams, where you don't see anything happening, no growth, no improvement? Thoughts are going to tell you this will always be difficult. You'll always struggle. And when it looks like it's going to be long, hard, and uphill, you just have to do your part. Stay in faith, knowing that you're going to come into those moments of favor where Krishna will suddenly cause things to fall into place. Suddenly, the burden is lifted. Suddenly, people change their minds. Suddenly, your business takes off. Suddenly, your health turns around. It's not a struggle anymore. Krishna can make things happen that you couldn't make happen. Many of the things that might be stressing you out today, worrying you, all the reasons that are going through your mind, why it's not going to work out. Well, can I tell you, like with me and Mai, you are going to find that Krishna has already resolved the problem. He's already changed their mind. He's already lined up the promotion, the healing, the good breaks. You think you're going to have to work for it, convince someone, earn it, endure, outlast. It's going to be easier than you think. Suddenly, explosively, after years of sowing the soil, being our best, hosting people at festivals, being good neighbors, beautifying the modest property, Krishna brought all those seeds that we planted to fruition, thrust us forward in the light of the temple project. Similarly, Krishna always goes before his devotees. He's already worked out the solution to what it is that they're worrying about. Quit dreading it. Quit losing sleep over it. If I had known it was going to be as easy as it was, I would have stayed in peace. I would have relaxed, enjoyed the journey, knowing that Krishna had already had it covered. And I wonder if you're dreading things right now, that later on, it's going to come to you that Krishna had already worked it out. That Krishna did not intend it to be as difficult as what you anticipate. You're going to find out in your own life that God's gone before you, worked out in advance what's stressing, lined up that donor, that patron, touched the heart of that architect, that engineer. Seems like it's going to be a big ordeal, take a long time. You're going to discover the rough places have already been smoothed out. Utah is also called by the local people as Zion. Zion is another name for the promised land. Some of our friends in Los Angeles, back in the 80s, they saw Utah as a land barren, void of possibilities for Krishna missionaries, no Indian community to speak of, no devotees. Told us we were chasing the wind, told us we were wasting our time. They didn't know what Krishna put in our hearts. They didn't think that Krishna's plan all along was to show his power in a greater way by planting a world-famous temple in this most unlikely place. They didn't give credit to Krishna for being a supernatural God, a God of breakthroughs, a God of open doors. Each and every part of Krishna's creation is a potential promised land if you're bold enough to step out in faith. You may have situations that seem much bigger, stronger, trouble at work, a legal problem. The odds are against you. You're thinking, how can I deal with this? It's going to be so difficult. Can I tell you that Krishna's going to do for you what he's done throughout the ages for thousands and thousands of other men and women of faith? What's that? He's crossing over ahead of you right now so that you can easily conquer. It's not going to be what it looks like. You're going to see favor, breakthroughs, freedom, things that you couldn't make happen on your own. What is that? That is the hand of God. We're asking you to get this down in your spirit this Sunday afternoon. Easily conquer. You're not going to deal with that depression forever. Easily conquer. That cancer is not going to take you out. Easily conquer. That struggle and lack is not your destiny. Easily conquer. One touch of Krishna's favor, one puff of his breath, suddenly things turn around. Suddenly giants come down. Suddenly addictions are broken. Suddenly doors are open. Suddenly you're healed from that disease. Suddenly you see increase, abundance, favor. When you're tempted to get full of dread, to worry, to think it's too much, just turn it around and use that same negative energy to say, Krishna, thank you that you're crossing over ahead of me, devouring what's trying to stop me. Thank you that I will easily conquer, that I will go into my promised land, that I will become all that you've created me to be. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Many times Krishna will ask you to do things that seem beyond your ability. Put dreams in your heart that seem too big. You don't have the experience, the talent, the connections. If we look at it only in terms of our ability, then the danger is that we'll talk ourselves out of it. But Krishna wouldn't have asked you to do it if he hadn't already lined up what you need. You can't see it how it happened, but if you'll take those little baby steps of faith, you'll discover that Krishna has already gone before you. It's going to be easier than you think. Krishna's looking for people who won't get talked out of their dreams. People who aren't moved by how big the challenge is. People who don't dread thinking it's too much, too hard, too great, too long. No, I can't do it. Krishna's looking for heroes of faith. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What I'm saying is that if you're going to reach your destiny, if you're going to accomplish your God-given dreams, if you're going to go places that nobody in your family has ever gone before, you have to have a certain boldness. You can't be weak, intimidated. This is too much. You have to ask big, pray big, believe big, dream big. We're going to need other people in the fulfillment of our dreams to open doors, other people to fund those dreams, other people to use their influence, other people to push us forward. How about praying, Krishna, you are within the hearts of each and every living being. So I'm praying that you put it in people's hearts to share this vision to help me. Put it in people's hearts to show me favor. I've heard it said, what God orders, he pays for. You may not see how you could have the funds, how you could start that mission, build that temple, get that business off the ground. You know that Krishna put the promise in your heart, but when you look at what you have, your resources, there's no way. Well, the good news is, it's not just up to you. Krishna has already placed people like Dr. Dinesh Patel, who will fund what he promised. Krishna controls the universe. He knows how to get to you what you need. It's not natural, it's supernatural. Contracts coming to you, ideas, architects, engineers, opportunities, people tracking you down. The key is to be like the heroes of faith. Lord, I believe you're going to cause people to be good to me. I believe you're going to open the storehouses of heaven. I believe you're going to pour out your resources to make what you promised come to pass. Has to go beyond the natural. If you just focus on what you have, you're not going to see a way. Krishna puts dreams in our hearts bigger than what we can afford. This is where faith kicks in. This is where you have to pray bold prayers and believe for uncommon resources, out of the ordinary increase so that you can accomplish what Krishna put in your heart. And the advantage is we're not alone in this. The gracious hand of God is on your life. How are you going to beat that cancer? I'll tell you, the gracious hand of God. How are you going to overcome the loss of that loved one? I'll tell you, the gracious hand of God. How are you going to accomplish that dream? The answer is the gracious hand of God. There's favor on your life that will cause you to go where you could not go on your own. I'm not saying that on the way to our destiny, there won't be challenges and setbacks and things that we don't understand, but if you'll stay into faith, you'll come into these moments of favor where Krishna suddenly opens the door, causes people to be good to you. The medical report turns around. It's not going to be a struggle. You're going to end up saying, that was easier than I thought. Well, Caru, what if I believe this and it doesn't get any easier? What if you believe it and it does? You have to release your faith. If you're dreading things, convinced that the struggle is permanent, it's going to be so hard to accomplish this dream, hard to raise this child, hard to get well, then your own thinking is going to put the limits on your life. During World War II, an American pilot was flying a mission with his crew over the Pacific Ocean in a small bomber when he ran out of fuel. He had to land on an island controlled by the Japanese. He and his men knew they would soon be captured and taken as prisoners. With their plane sitting on the beach with no fuel, they had all but given up. That is, except for one crew member who was a man of faith. He believed that God could make a way where none of the crew members saw a way. He got down on his knees on the beach and he began to pray in a loud voice and ask God to protect them, give them favor, help them get back to their base. The other men thought he was a little dinghy in the head. They were on a deserted island. Hello, no boat. Hello, no food. Hello, just a matter of time. Hello, before the Japanese find us. Early the next morning, one of the men couldn't sleep. He got up, decided to go to the beach and take a walk. He looked out in the waves and he saw something strange bobbing up and down. This large canister, about 5 feet tall, 3 feet wide. He went over, called some of the other guys. They hauled it in, took a close look at it, and the words were written on it, aviation fuel. He couldn't believe it. They shouted, they jumped up and down. I don't know if they high-fived in those days, but whatever it was. They pulled it all the way out of the water, poured the fuel into the plane. Soon they were in the air and went back to their base. Their lives were spared. The interesting thing is that later it was discovered that this canister was one of hundreds of canisters on a big cargo barge that was torpedoed. And all the canisters were lost, but this one canister floated over 1,000 miles past 25 other islands. It just happened to have washed up on this island where the plane had run out of fuel. And it just happened that the soldier got up early, not being able to sleep, and went and saw it. I think you'll agree with me. It seemed like an impossible situation. Deserted island, enemy territory, no airport, no gas stations. But Krishna, or God, never runs out of options. He had the solution before you had the problem. That canister had been floating in that direction months before the plane ran out of fuel. Could have sunk, gotten lost, washed up on another island, but what God has ordained for you is going to find you. It's going to show up at the right time. Krishna already has the healing en route, the promotion en route, the freedom en route. The right people are en route. May seem like you could never get out of your situation. You've hit the bottom, a dead end, never accomplished that dream. But can I encourage you today? You don't know what Krishna is up to. You don't know what's already en route. It's not going to be as difficult as you think. It's not going to take as long as it looks. Krishna's going before you, making your crooked places straight. If you could see what he has coming, how he's going to turn the trouble around, restore what you've lost, thrust you to a new level, you wouldn't be discouraged. You wouldn't complain. You'd be singing his praises, thanking him for his goodness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It may look complicated, seem stressful, the odds are against you, you could live worried, but you have to keep reminding yourself it's going to be easier than it looks. Krishna's in control. He's fighting your battles. His plans for you are for good and not for evil. He's bigger than the sickness, bigger than the trouble, more powerful than what's trying to stop you. There is something called a no-sweat anointing. That's when you don't have to make it happen. You don't have to strive, endeavor, work, manipulate. You just have to stay in faith. Krishna does it for you. Today we're encouraging you to let your faith rise up. Sure, you're going to have challenges. There are going to be seasons where you have to endure, outlast, and stand strong. But I want you to see that in the pursuit of your God-given dreams, there will also be times of favor where Krishna is going to step in and make it easier than it looks. Don't go through life dreading, stressed out, worried. You're not doing this journey of life on your own. The gracious hand of God is on you all through the day. Thank you, Krishna, that you're going before me, making crooked places straight. Thank you that your yoke is easy, that your burden is light. If you've kept him first place in your life, I believe you're about to see the gracious hand of God. What used to be a struggle is not going to be a struggle anymore. Negative situations are turning around. New doors are about to open. Healing is coming. Breakthrough is coming. Favor is coming. It's going to be easier than you think in this life. And next life, you go back to home, back to God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.